Welcome to the briefing for leaders who don't have time for bullshit and only strategy, power, and clarity. I'm Tiffany Hart, and today we're talking about the part of leadership that no one trains for. Not the spreadsheets, not the frameworks, the power, the influence, and the unspoken dynamics that decide who rises, who plateaus, and who quietly loses relevance without ever knowing why. Harvard teaches you strategy. McKinsey teaches you models, but nobody teaches you power. And yet, power determines everything. So let's get grounded in some facts. According to Gallup, more than 70% of senior leaders say they do not receive honest feedback at work, meaning the higher you rise, the quieter the room gets. Most executives think that success is driven by intelligence, work ethic, experience, and execution. All of these are true, but at the highest levels, this is insufficient. What really governs leadership is trust, timing, emotional control, and most importantly, influence. And by the time someone finally tells you the truth, it's usually already cost you your credibility. Ray Dalio, the founder of Bridgewater, one of the most successful hedge funds in the world, said it very bluntly. Most people fail to get to where they want to go because they could not confront the truth. The real risk in leadership is not failure, it's delusion. There are three things in every boardroom that you need to understand, but almost nobody admits to. Truth number one, silence isn't agreement. It's usually self-preservation by those under you. When people stop challenging you, they aren't suddenly aligned. They've calculated the risk. And the danger is this. You think you're respected. You think you're untouchable. They just don't want to say anything. Truth number two, deals die more from ego and not from the math. I've watched seven-figure deals collapse with perfect projections because someone felt unheard, dismissed, undervalued, unsafe. Indra Nooyi, the former CEO of Pepsi & Co., put it very simply. If you don't take people with you, you don't go anywhere. Ultimately, boards don't fail intellectually, they fail emotionally. It was just yesterday I was watching Jack Ma say that his job is to find the smartest people that's smarter than him to go ahead and do the things that he needs. However, really smart people don't tend to get along. You can hire dumb people that don't believe in the vision or the mission, or you can hire smart people that do believe in the vision and mission, but they're never going to get along. This is your job as a leader, is to help them work together. Truth number three, pressure exposes leadership. It doesn't change it. Anyone can lead when things are calm. Real leadership shows up when the deal stalls, the media circles, the board is in doubt, the numbers wobble. That's when tone becomes power. Your resume gets you in the room, but your behavior decides whether you stay there. Warren Buffett said it greatly. It takes 20 years to build a reputation and only 5 minutes to ruin it. That's not branding, that's operational risk. Now look, let me give you a really great public example of poor leadership. One of the most iconic companies in all of history is Boeing, at least in the United States. They didn't have a talent problem. There wasn't a technological problem. There was a leadership and cultural problem. Over time, decisions became disconnected from the engineering reality, and they could no longer go ahead and flag that up the pole. People stopped escalating their concerns. Pressure replaced precision. Speed replaced judgment. And leadership incentives slowly drifted away from safety and towards optics and profit targets. The failure did not arrive in one moment. It arrived quietly and then with a big bang, the MAX airplanes. In decisions that weren't challenged, ultimately. In voices that didn't feel safe to go ahead and speak up when problems arose. In leaders who stopped asking the right questions. Eventually, it cost them billions of dollars and loss of sales. Executive credibility, institutional trust, and a historic brand reputation went up in flames, just like their plane. Boeing didn't fail because they lacked intelligence. You see, well, one of them were some of the most intelligent people that I know. They failed because leadership was no longer listening. Look, this is what failure looks like in silence. This is what it looks like at scale. Or we can also pivot to Yahoo or Nokia. They had the technology, the talent, the market, but leadership lacked clarity and coherence. Look, I want you to go ahead and not judge yourself, but I want you to write these three things down if you are in a leadership position. If you left your organization tomorrow, what truth would finally be spoken? Where are you explaining instead of clarifying? Think about this. Who benefits from your blind spots? Because somebody always does. And what conversations are you avoiding? Because it's uncomfortable and not because it's unnecessary. If you don't know the answers or you think they just don't apply to you, that does not mean that you are fine. It means that you are insulated and in an echo chamber, my friend. And insulation and echo chambers destroy leadership, they destroy innovation, and they destroy culture. I always like to think of this in a very interesting framework. I call it power, P.O.W.E.R. And this is really how influence works beyond just titles. So P stands for perception beats intent, 99% of the time. People experience matters more than what you mean. How you make people feel is a very famous quote, and it applies here. Oh, for open channels that create loyalty. You don't get the truth from people that you intimidate. You get compliance. And although useful, not always the right answer. W, who holds the power is not only the person that holds the title. Influence does not follow hierarchy. It follows trust, control of information, relationships, reputation. Power follows leverage, not organizational charts. Anyone who has or has had to get past gatekeepers know this. E is for emotional precision under pressure. Leaders don't fail on the IQ test, but they tend to fail on temperature. Your presence sets the climate for your entire organization and your team. And the last one is reputation. Reputation travels faster than results. Your name enters a room before you do. And it speaks long before you ever arrive. Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, once said, the success of a leader is determined by whether they can see around corners. Translation, leadership is not loud, it's perceptive. It's always watching. Now, I want to hear from you, no filters, no fluff, about board dynamics, executive conflicts, power mistakes, trust breakdowns, leadership isolations, decision paralysis, influence gaps, whatever it is that you have. Type your questions and I will answer it. Let me go ahead and take a look over at the chat feed right now. All right. Let's see which question looks good today. We're going to keep it short and sweet, people. Nobody's got time. Okay, just reading through this question really quick. That is a great question. Absolutely. Board dynamics are some of the most difficult dynamics that I've ever had to encounter. And it's really about building relationships with people that you may not understand or even like. And really, that is the way that you build bridges instead of burning them down. I've also been on hostile boards where we've had to go ahead and basically eliminate board members through hostile action. Either way, it still requires an understanding and a level of relationships that most people do not have. All right, let's go to the next question. So the next question is, how does conflicts in the boardroom drive perception? I think those that keep cool heads and are able to go ahead and navigate that with professionalism, understanding, empathy, and emotional EQ are the people that are going to be the most able to go ahead and drive results, even in heavy conflict situations. Again, talking about the board that I was on where there was an aggressive activist action to go ahead and oust board members. It required still a lot of emotional EQ by the participants that made that happen. Another question was, I mentioned Boeing and how do leaders avoid the disconnections you mentioned? while maintaining profitability, particularly where it relates to mergers and blended cultures. I think that the most important thing in both of those situations is being open to being understood, having direct lines of communication, and never feeling challenged. I think that is the greatest things. A lot of people mistake the two together. Their ego gets bruised when they're challenged because they're not being listened, and they don't understand that there could be knowledge nuggets in there. Again, in leadership, I've also seen it being overridden by very strong leaders to go ahead and have a direction and cue. But oftentimes they listen to the people that they know understand the problem better than they do because they're closer to it. And mergers and blended cultures are very, very tricky. I think getting people behind the mission and the vision is the most important thing that you can do from day one. That is literally a leader's job, is to go ahead and define that mission and that vision and make sure that everybody is excited by it. And if they're not, you need to ask questions why. Do we have any other additional questions? Another one came through. So the question is around mentioning activist investors and who were targeted on the board. And I've seen a lot of activism in investing lately. What advice would you give CEOs in navigating the current social media spaces? I think that you're not in front of it, then you're already been ran over it by it. I think that the current culture is a culture not of money, of sales or revenue, but of attention. And so if you can get their attention and you can speak relatively to not only your clients, but your board members, your shareholders, your stakeholders, then you are really going ahead and evangelizing your mission and having everybody get on board with you. And that's how you insulate yourself from activists who want to see you off. In addition, I think one of the most important things is most activist shareholders aren't just being activists just for the sake of it. There's something seriously wrong. I need to sit down and you need to figure out, you need to go ahead and figure out how to go ahead and fix this and find some compromise. Not always does it work. There's going to be some who are always going to be that way. But at the end of the day, oftentimes they just want change, whether it's you or somebody else. Make sure it's somebody else. I'm offering something a little special for the first live of the briefing. We have a boardroom reality check. This is a 30-minute executive diagnostic, not coaching. I don't do that shit. Not how are you feeling? I'm not your therapist. Find somebody. This is a strategy under pressure. We look at your blind spots, your communication risk, your political friction, influence gaps, and basically where you're hemorrhaging and leaking power. Go ahead and message me with Boardroom Truth for executives who want real partnerships. I also work privately through advisory retainers, strategic intensive, board level advisory engagements, and corporate speaking engagement. This conversation happens privately, off the record, with Chatham House rules, not in the public. All right, final closeout. Look, leadership isn't about perfection. It's oftentimes, for better or worse, about perception. It's about your presence, and it's about the courage to hear what others avoid. If this conversation made you even a little bit uncomfortable or think about how you show up, good. That means it worked. I'm Tiffany Hart. This is the briefing for leaders who don't do corporate speak. Stay tuned for the next episode, How Power Networks Really Work, the Davos special. You're not going to want to miss it. I'll see you there. Until then, I'm out.